increasing the amount of funds we can use and they can use for brick and mortar projects. And with 2 new hotels being constructed, that amount of money we'll be getting in is going to be increased, possibly significantly. And so the idea of forming a committee to kind of do the work that would otherwise be passed on to staff or otherwise bogged down our twice-a-month work sessions could be handled by a committee. Now, the committee would be consistent of people who are already part of city staff and already on council, just to kind of first-hand formulate a list of projects to be funded using TPD. And also the possibility, and this is something that I talked to Tim about, of securing a bond in the amount that could fund multiple projects at once instead of waiting for those funds to be paid, since we can come up with an average at least of the annual amount we would take in as far as our tax revenues for TPD. Right. And that way, TPD could fund itself and pay off those bonds within a short period of time. So I won't read the entire resolution, just a couple of tweaks I'm gonna make. But essentially it would consist of city manager, economic development consultant, member of council, 1 community representative, and 1 development authority representative to discuss those projects for recommendation to council.
I think probably important for that group to formulate a 5-year plan of
That
action. So that we've got something instead of putting everything on the table at once, kind of have a plan of how we're going to accomplish those
Yeah.
things within the confines.
Ideally, I would like to see a 1 to 5 year plan, so like a staggered plan, things we could get done on a shorter timetable instead of having to wait 5 years to start a project.
Would we potentially RFP for the position, or how do you envision that position actually?
For,
The TPD consultant?
so in my mind, we already have an economic development consultant. TPD is inherently economic development, because anything that's going to draw in tourists is also going to lead to increased revenue within the city. If needed, we could potentially, but I don't foresee that happening. And also with budget concerns, I would not want to create a resolution that would require revenue that we're not already budgeted for. So that was my thinking behind using people who are currently on staff rather than issuing an RFP for that position.
Could we potentially bifurcate, let's say like, we know we need more accounting staff. Can we bifurcate duties from that perspective as far as doing the reports and those types of things for that type of role?
It's funny you mentioned that, that's in here. So pending the hiring of more accounting staff, some of those reporting duties could be deferred to the economic development consultant. And that goes along with the audit findings and separation of duties, kind of delegating some responsibilities until that position is filled, because that's something that I agree needs to be filled as well.
Reflecting on what Mayor said about a 5-year plan, I remember when I moved here and I came to one of the first city council meetings that I came to, Mr. Burke had made a comment that economic development is many pennies that make a dollar and not just large projects. And I really think we have an awesome opportunity with the resolution that we passed for the second reading earlier tonight to focus on some big things, but also similar to what the Main Street Board staff was saying earlier, there's a lot of small things that might draw attention to one person or a certain group of folks that might not draw attention to another group at all. So I really think the power of having a community-focused 5-year vetted out, sort of like maybe through a charrette. I think this committee would be good to facilitate that process.
Citizen involvement is paramount for them.
When you make your tweets, are you going to email that?
Yeah, I didn't want to email it in this form in case there were questions on things that might have been adjusted or taken out altogether.
And my question, the reason why I said it was going to be our position, because the reason why I asked is the scale of the projects, the potential scale of different projects that we may have. So that's why I asked. I think this is a good concept, but I'm just saying, to look at it from the perspective of sort of scale of potential projects that we may have. That way.
And that could be something that's like on a per project basis. It's needed.
Okay, any further discussion on that item? Thank you, Chloe, thank you, Mark. City manager report?
Nothing new to report, but I do want to make a correction to one thing, a question that was asked before, I think that's by Councilman Borchert, about the implementation of the 8% on the hotel motel. Actually, when we send out our letters, it's got to be on the second month after initiation. So the 8% will go in, have to go into effect at the beginning of August, and then our payments would start in middle of October.
All right, any other questions? All right, at this time, I'll open the floor up for any general comments anybody has or questions they'd like to make. I'll start on my left. Steve, state your name and address for the record, if you would, please, sir.
Steve Lund, I own the property at 625 Chestnut Street. Former resident, that's the own property here. I just recently found out, maybe a month or so ago, that there's an Airbnb being operated out of one of the units. And I just wanted to tee it up here. I'm not sure what can be done or what's on the agenda or what can be done. There's language being written, there's some laws coming out from the state of Georgia on how to manage these things. A couple of concerns, obviously, I guess from the city's perspective, is the hotel motel tax that you're not getting. I'm sure there's that. And there's also a safety issue. I think the police have been called up here a couple of times to, I think, 629 Chestnut Street, and let's see the address. I lived there for a while also, again, I rent the place out now, but again, I wasn't aware of this Airbnb being operated out of that building. I'm not sure what the laws are behind this, and I don't know if the state of Georgia's going to do this.
Yeah, Sandy Springs recently passed an ordinance that we're looking at right now that requires Airbnb staff an occupational tax permit, and they also have to pay the hotel motel tax.
It's also a liability issue as well. I think it's.
I agree. I don't think it's fair. I mean, we take the Hilton Hotel, for example, here, they pay a huge amount of hotel motel tax fees. And I don't think it's fair for somebody to just rent their house out and have no obligations. There's no life safety. Those, Eileen Rammon owns a little bed and breakfast, and she's got to have a sprinkler system and permitted kitchen and all that stuff. I don't think it's a fair playing field. So
I agree with, I know there's some discussion, we're going to go back and discuss about moving some of our HOA documents to address this, which is something we have to do, but I think from the city perspective, I know that I've gotten videos about the young lady that lives next door to my unit. She's a camera on the back of her door, and people come in peeking in her windows. And
that's ridiculous.
People are smoking weed out back, and that kind of stuff, so garbage is piled up. You have people that come in there, as I understand it, like on a Thursday night, say the weekend party, drinking, they're throwing, 50 beer cans everywhere. And I guess Brian lives, next door to it, so.
I hear about that every now and then from Brian.
So, every day from Brian. But I just appreciate you giving me a chance. I've been here a while, things have changed. Again, I'm from here. And,
Good to see you.
good to see you, man. We have to do, we talked about that. So, thanks a lot, guys.
To comment on that, I'm actually watching a Vice News YouTube video, it's about 15 minutes long yesterday. Airbnb seems surprisingly pro-regulation. So they have model code. I mean, it's probably leans to their advantage to push a model code, but there's model code out there that's available by way of their legal affairs department.
It's the individuals that I'm more worried about.
Yeah, but I mean, they're for tax, so that's what I'm saying. It's not.
I just appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thanks a lot.
On my left, Charlotte, you had your hand up?
Yes.
I wanted to applaud Councilman Alexander's proposal for a committee to help put together the plan for the TPD funds, I would like to suggest and request that a representative from the Main Street Board be included in that group. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on all that?
You-
Warren?
No, please, go ahead. I'll be a while.
I'm just announcing we're opening our next show. It's Tapas. It's 10 short plays, so it's really good for adult attention spans. So you just you get ready, and then there's another one. So it's 5 and then intermission. It'd be really fun. It's the next 3 weekends.
Would you state your name and address?
Oh, yeah.
for everyone?
It's Lauren Phi Academy Theater, and it's 3382 Coleman Ave.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Murphy?
Laura Murphy, 201 Colorado Avenue. Thank you for bringing up the water sewer, and thank you for bringing up what Charlotte just said. Please speak into the microphones, everyone. Sometimes, Travis, you lean that way, and you
I
lean
mumble
that
too,
way, and
so.
you mumble. And if our city manager would speak into the microphone, and if our people, our staff would get up and speak into the microphone, I would appreciate it. On the water issue, streamlabwater.com, $199. You can add something to your water and we'll send it to your smartphone. I just looked that up today. I would like to comment on Lee. Thank you for getting back with me on this water issue. Because I got a big runaround, which I think that's the complaint, starting with most citizens, is you go and the first thing they say is you got a leak. Second thing they say is you need to check this, or somebody's stealing your water, or somebody's doing this, or somebody's doing that. Lee finally got me a readout, which I didn't know we could get a readout. But then he says, well, you only can have it for 30 days, which didn't help me for the 13,000 gallons that they said I used when I wasn't really there. And when we leave now, we shut off the water because I got attacked at my other place with an old water meter, and I used to take a picture of it. And they said I used 33,000 gallons. So that being said, I have a $298 bill, which I'm going to complain about. I don't mind paying the minimum of $49.80. I'll be glad to pay that. But I was hoping that he could prove what time, since this is hourly. I don't know if you all have ever seen this. You have. Have you? This is what we can get. I'll just pass it down. But by the time we get our bill, 3 weeks is gone. And then by the time we complain, you no longer have the availability of the bill in question. Because I would love to know. It shows right there that if you had a leak, you would have water usage every hour. Is this something, Lee, maybe we could
In this instance, our computer system went down. This is relatively new technology for us. We've since worked with IT. We have a backup now. We've probably done 25 or 30 of these readouts. It did go down in your case, so we could not look at that number.
Well, because I would love to know what hour of the day supposedly this was done, because if you know 18 gallons is a shower, 2.5 gallons is a toilet flush, 30 gallons is a washing machine, and if you have a rate of 6 gallons per minute on a hose, a 100-foot hose, that would mean, gee, that thing would have to be running for days to get to 13,000 gallons. I think if something was running for days, somebody would say, hey, you got something running down the street. I have a neighbor right here that would say, hey, you got water running down the street. So I would ask that the city council relieve me of this $298, but I'll pay the minimum on this. And then my other bill at 3395 Dogwood the month before said I used 0, and that's where I'm staying. So I'm a little confused. I mean, it said literally I used 0, nothing, nada. And something's really weird.
Well, I think on the bills, the the amounts of lead, they're not to the gallon, are they? Aren't they by thousands?
That'd be the minimum.
So you can sometimes show no consumption, but they're actually.
Well, and it goes like, see, 0, 0. I mean, it's pretty strange on that. And then this one jumps all over, 0, 0, 0. But the hourly reading would be wonderful to see, because then you would see if you had a leak. If that's something you could incorporate.
I don't know if the new meters allow for long-term storage, I don't know.
It will, but that's a fixed base system.
Okay,
It's,
that's the remote read.
right, it's $1 million.
I'll look in Savannah when I go to GMA at what the water meter.
It would solve so many problems. Instead of saying, hey, you got a leak, it would say right there, oh, look, every hour had some usage, you have a leak.
Lee, may I ask, how often do we read the meters?
We read them once a month.
Because we bill monthly.
In my endeavors of getting involved in the city of Hickville government, I probably asked a little bit too many questions, but my discovery, I was trying to find like outliers. Because I think a government that's for the people and by the people is one that's proactive. And I mean, Lee sent a wonderful email earlier this week that was like, well, here's the 6 issues that y'all talked about, and then a paragraph of what the resolution was per each. That's awesome. My thing is, if we can use low-cost technology to practically know who has a leak and probably let them know before they even know, that's a government that people like talk about. But even if it's not that, like just low cost from a bill perspective, if we know that house A hit a peak that was 1,700% higher than its other 35 months of usages. Like when I was looking at it, it was 36 months of bills for the whole city. So every single meter, you had 532 cases that were over 300% spikes. And some of those were pretty, not atypical, like a home hitting more than $2,000 in non-summer months and they don't have a pool, like that they might be doing something else. So it's probably just prudent that we can find ways to even be more proactive and think outside of the box than we already are. So
One of the issues with water metering is you can't use a one-size-fits-all for water metering. In the case of that, we've probably put in 400 new meters since 2007 when it went out to bid. Now, this didn't come up, but if you had an old meter and it's reading at 80% or 70%, some of them we found were dead. Your bill's gonna jump drastically. So when we get all new meters, everybody's bill's gonna go up.
Because they're more accurate.
And then they're gonna be saying, so the technology's great, but people are always gonna dispute water bills because nobody thinks they have the leak, but the percentage national average right now is that you're gonna have at least 10% of homes have leaks right now in Hayesville. And for us, that's 200 people. That we're not getting 200 calls. I get 7 calls, maybe, no more than 10 a month that are disputing bills. We give them the information and they don't realize they have the leak until the end, and it's, oh, I do have one. So the information is great, it helps, but it will not stop disputes. You will always have those.
I can agree. I agree with that. And I'll push back a little bit and say I prefer to have more enhanced technology that when we're able to go back and provide a rationale as to why your bill is XYZ, that it's more apparent as to why it happened versus having old technology whereby we cannot necessarily provide a transparent rationale as to why my bill is XYZ.
I agree. I understand.
And back to my point, I'm asking for relief on this bill because the computer was conveniently down. I know it was no fault of yours, but I would have loved to have seen since I can see exactly where I use the stuff, which has made me want to shut off the water when I brush my teeth now.
But we can only test the meter. If the meter comes back.
And you said I had no leak.
No, I said this, I said it did not show any leak. But if we test the meter, half the people here don't have smart meters. I can't tell them at what hour their water was used. At some point, you can debate anything that we can show you, but if we test the meter, which is in the code book, and the reading is correct, we assume that water went through the meter. The new technology allows us to show people minute by minute or hour by hour, but there's no way, if the meter tests good, we assume the water goes through the meter. Whether it's stolen, whether it's a leak or whatever. And we offer leak policies if you do have a leak.
So basically what you're saying is the 13,000 gallons that I say I didn't use, because one, I shut off the meter when we leave town. I mean, that's what we do, because this has happened at other places. I said, from now on, we're shutting off the meter. That's it. I mean, I believe we did not use that 13,000 gallons. There's just no way.
We have people who have leaks that turn toilets on and off. If you forget to turn it off, it's gonna run a bill up.
That's not gonna do 13,000. Not when my water is shut off, when I'm gone.
Okay,
So-
I don't think we should debate this all night. I understand your point. Why don't we talk amongst ourselves about what we want to do, if there's any relief this council wants to offer here.
I would recommend Ms. Murphy following back up with the city manager in collaboration with Lee for to get this resolved.
That's fine.
Yeah. I think they'd be willing to help you resolve that issue.
Well, I would appreciate it, and like I said, I will be shutting off my water meter again. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments on all that? Am I right? Comments, questions? Council? Hello?
Oh, I had two. So employee records, statutory requirement is 7 years, and then we get rid of them after 7 years.
If they're not, if they're
They're not
not
vested.
Not vested or not employed.
So I would like to see that increase to 2 years for two reasons. The first, and I'm not going to say this correctly at all, maybe somebody who's former military can help me, but the pay scale for working in public service correlates with military service. So let's say that I did 8 years in the Air Force, and then I went to work for a city for 10, that means my pay grade with any government agency would be correlated to 18 years of service. But if my employment records are terminated after 7 years, I can't verify that. Does that make sense? Okay. The second reason is for,
That would be a vested employee, but not.
it depends.
That example would be a vested employee, and that record would not be destroyed, but I don't want to get there.
I think it depends on the consecutive employment. I'm not 100% sure about it.
They can study it.
The second reason though is for loan forgiveness for public servants. And that does not have to be consecutive, but it's 10 years of employment or 120 payments.
in a certain field.
Yeah. So for instance, if you work for a city, if you work for a school, if you work for a public hospital, if you work for a nonprofit, you qualify for
Student loan forgiveness.
student loan forgiveness, and it doesn't have to be consecutive. Like I can do my 10 years of service over the course of 25 years, but if the city doesn't have a record of employment, then there's no way I can verify my employment. So that's the only two things. The second one is there a way that we can get a formula for stormwater fees? Or how they're calculated?
Sure.
That was it.
Alderman Rouse?
No comments.
Councilman Nutt?
No comments.
Councilman Horsley?
2 comments. First one's for Chief Kalisek. and besides just looking at the website, what's the purpose of maintaining CALEA certification? If I'm pronouncing that even right, and what benefits does it bring to the city? The reason I'm asking is I saw, I believe it was a reposting of the managerial position, like the certification.
Certification.
Oh, yes.
Accreditation.
Absolutely. Well, you know, some of the things you all discussed tonight are part of that. You mentioned the policies and procedures, you know, our evaluation process. There are checks and balances. Frankly, it's an elite standard in our field. So it's something that I think, you know, we as a department, you know, certainly as a city, put our best foot forward and prove that we're using best practices. That's really the crux of it. It does provide a little bit of additional assurance for things like insurance and things, but again, the crux of it is just that standard of excellence. You know, I've mentioned the previous city managers before too, when we had the discussion about it. Frankly, this is something that we could continue without officially doing the program. So it's absolutely something that the city wanted us to discontinue state certification or national accreditation. We could certainly do that. Frankly, it would be much easier for staff. So it's something.
It's a tough certification to achieve.
It is. Oh, yeah. It's something that not every agency can achieve, and a lot of agencies try. But again, it's a standard of excellence, and if it's not anything that this council is interested in, I can give you my assurance that, one, if you chose to, you know, eliminate the idea, we can still maintain those standards. We have policies and procedures in place that frankly will not change other than when state law or something changes that would require us to change. So,
and besides the burden rate for the employee that does that accreditation, maintains that, what is the additional cost to the agency?
well, for state certification, it's $350 a year. For national accreditation, it's $4,000 a year. Plus, when our audit comes in, which is now going to be every 3 to 4 years, we have to pay for the auditors to come down, you know, their hotel and all that.
Does that make it more attractive for officers to come on work for us, having the CALEA certification?
We're, believe it or not, even though we've had it for many years, we're actually still new to the process. And I say yes, and that everybody wants to be a part of the best team. So to me, it makes us more marketable to those individuals that are looking for a place that they can count on as far as being excellent. But, you know, it's that. But again, I feel like it's something that should give, hopefully does give the public confidence that their agency is doing everything by best practices. So really, it's just that. It's proof of that.
And the second question, this is more for staff. Question was asked of me earlier about our access to use an agreement with the billboard companies to advertise things that are happening in Hapeville. I'm just not sure where that agreement stands or who has the right to activate it.
Yeah, it was part of the negotiation
I
that
think we
took
get
place.
4 per year.
Yeah.
fee it's on the rotating, like it was, I think it's on the digital one, so
What
it's
is?
one of the ones
Right.
rotating through. And so we had talked about using the Hateful Home for the Arts on that, and we just haven't done it. Jennifer Elkins had the agreement before.
Yeah, there's an agreement with, I can't remember the name of the outdoor.
Is that the one on Interstate 75?
Out front media?
No,
No, it was out front. Yeah.
it's 85, but I think it might let us use either.
Yeah, it was on
one.
85, I think she said 2. I think there
It
were
could
2.
be 2, I could be wrong. It was
So-
Susan Fromm, so if you looked through emails, it'd be, her name is, last name Fromm.
So I think the primary one that was used previously was the out front media as you're heading down.
It's about the railroad now, so.
So that one was a different one.
All right.
That was because they wanted to cut trees at the Development Authority.
All right.
And I think they paid the DA or something, but I said, would you donate a billboard also? And they were like, sure. So
That was the claw from.
as part of that, like they designed that billboard. I met with their team, all these, their art directors and everything, and they put that up there, and that was the like canvas billboards that you stretch across, which they actually gave to us, we have it. But I think the agreement, and I could be wrong, was because about the same time, they wanted to convert one of the canvas ones to the digital billboard, and they had to get city approval. And so part of the deal was that we would get a rotating spot twice or 4 times a year, whatever it is. Am I right?
I think so, it had to do with them moving from traditional to LED.
And they had to come get your permission to do
Yeah, it was
it.
part of the negotiation we entered into.
And I think it was like perpetual. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah, I don't
goes
think
on
it had an
forever,
answer.
as long as we like.
So I think it didn't matter finding an agreement and figuring out who gets active.
There's a billboard, by the way, that's just standing there behind City Suites.
There's also, if they didn't remove it, the skeleton of one that maybe is at Keller Homes or something. And I actually think in that
Yeah.
agreement that they were supposed to remove that when they switched to the digital board for the other one. And that was part of the deal, that that one would go away. It was already a skeleton, but they would get rid of it.
It's all nice and resting.
And I might have some of the.
We'll look into those agreements.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Is this side of the room offered the?
I've already, council comments now.
85, this, I'm sorry, I forgot about this, the sound barrier. I know there's a DOT thing and it's been talked about for a
We've
long
been
time.
promised when they do a project on 85 that should have already taken place, that we would get the sound barrier.
Okay.
And that promise has been going on. Yeah, it was a widening project, it was tied to a widening project. So I think we need to blow up our friends at DOT.
Yeah,
as soon as we
can we contact them to see exactly what we can get done about some type of sound barrier on 85?
And we've talked about that.
They never did a widening project.
They never did.
Right.
Everybody else in town has a sound barrier.
After I ran through some paperwork that Charlotte had passed me from leading up the, I guess, citizen committee to get it done last time, I called, sort of from a top-down approach, called John Lewis's office.
Right, that's what we
And
dealt with.
was told I'd get a phone call back, and didn't happen, so I guess I followed.
Yeah, I think it was before redistricting, so it was, who was it before we were in John Lewis's district?
Because St. Reed was still our,
Yeah.
State
Yeah,
senator.
he was.
State senator.
It was state senator.
We had
There's not, I draw a blank. I'm tired. I want to thank everybody for coming out for our Memorial Day service. It was a great day, a great honor to pay our thanks and respects to those who paid the ultimate sacrifice from Hateville. And I want to speak to the CALEA certification just for a moment. I was here the night that the CALEA team came and made the presentation and awarded us the CALEA certification. And I was skeptical about that certification, I really was, but the excellence in which it propels your organization and the standards that they set for law enforcement is very, very impressive. It's like being a member of an elite platoon, in my opinion. So I would support our